There is an issue regarding authorship of papers, especially in the day and age where your publication track record counts, especially if you are able to get into high impact journals, right? And I'm really quite pleased that despite a lot of the teething problems we had with eProg actually has milestones now where we actually discuss expectations. And one of the issues there would be authorship of papers. So from day one, and I often reiterate this stance, my view is that if I come up with the intellectual idea, and if I actually do a lot of work in terms of probing you, in terms of giving you references, in terms of framing the argument, even though you are doing a lot of the writing, then my name goes first. But if you came up with the idea and you actually did a lot of the groundwork and a lot of the stuff, and my role is more of an editing in the editing process, then your name goes first. That said, I do try to encourage my students to be first authors because at the end of the day, they need to have a career, and it's really quite important that that they actually feel confident in actually going forward as first author. And single authors as well, if they progress to such a stage where perhaps their disciplinary perspective is so divergent compared to mine, then I would encourage them to be single authors in the paper. So I think there's no hard and fast rule to that, and I know that there are certainly some sentiment, perhaps even a myth that PhD students get exploited. I certainly work with a Swedish professor who studies this in great detail in terms of burnout and exploitation of PhD students. But I think there is no hard and fast rule to this. I think what matters is that there is a conversation and a dialogue, and that we actually negotiate what is most appropriate. I would imagine that in the first year or two of the PhD process, that the PhD students are probably more reliant on the supervisor, and therefore the supervisor probably has to probe a lot further, and therefore offer the intellectual ideas much more than perhaps in the latter stages of the PhD process. And I certainly observe that in my own supervision practice. So I can certainly see a transition where I have moved from the first authorship of an article to perhaps taking a back burner in terms of authoring papers.